Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of the Know Your Formula One track series. This week is the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix and it is held at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, best known as Imola. It is the first race of the season happening in Europe. The track was built in 1950, however the first Formula One championship race was held 30 years later in 1980. It held Formula One races every single year until 2006, and it returned on the calendar in 2020 during COVID when some other venues were cancelled due to the pandemic. This track is 4.9 kilometers long, it has 19 corners and only one DRS zone. It is a fairly narrow track, which makes passing pretty difficult, and this is the reason why there is only one DRS zone possible. This track is notorious for getting off tracks, especially at Piratella and the chicane Variante Alta.
The car wide,
and this is Piratella, and this is Lando Norris.
Bull crap!
Changes were made to the track earlier this year to punish that more, with the removal of some runoff areas and the addition of gravel traps at the exits of both of these corners. Imola is renowned for its challenging layout. It is a mix of fast corners and technical sections, the most famous being the Tamburello corner, Rivazza, and the Variante Alta chicane. By the way, I will be making these videos for every single track on the calendar this year, so if you don't want to miss any, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and that you hit that notification bell button. But for now, let me show you what a fast lap around Imola looks like. The lap begins on the front straight with the rear ring open on the track's one and only DRS zone. The infamous Tamburello chicane approaches quickly with cars reaching speeds of upwards of 325 km per hour. Drivers will keep a tight line through the chicane and avoid the sausage curves to maintain speed and balance of the car through the quick left-right-left sequence. Next is the Villeneuve corner, another fast left-right chicane. Drivers will brake lightly, using all the curb on exit to maximize speed. Onto the tricky turn 7 hairpin, Tosa, it is hard on the brakes, hitting a late apex and focusing on a clean exit as we head uphill towards Piratella. It's important to have a precise turn in here, using as much of the exit curb as you can and avoiding an off-track. The next complex is Acqua Minerali. A lot of finesse on the brakes is required here. Drivers will use a lot of curb on exit, trying to straighten the car out as fast as possible to maintain traction up the hill. We are now heading towards Variante Alta, a tight chicane. It is the only part of the track where taking the sausage curb will gain you time. A clean exit here is key to optimize the next high-speed section and the downhill run to Rivazza. The double left-hander requires learned hard braking and again using all of the track, focusing on a perfect exit through the second part of the turn to get the best run possible onto the final straight. And that's a lap at Imola. Mercedes hold both the fastest race lap and the fastest qualifying lap. They were both done in 2020. The race lap by Hamilton and the qualifying lap by Bottas. Schumacher holds the most victories at Imola with 7 victories, but it is Senna that has the most pole position with 8. Now let's move on to a few fun facts about this track. Historically known as Autodromo di Imola, it became the Autodromo Dino Ferrari in 1970 in honor of Enzo Ferrari's son Alfredo, known as Dino Ferrari, after he passed at the age of 24. Enzo's own name was added to the name of the track in 1988 after his death, becoming the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. Now about the name of the Grand Prix itself. Despite being in Italy, Imola was only considered as the Italian Grand Prix for the inaugural race in 1980, where it replaced Monza on the calendar. But starting in 1981, both races were held in Italy, and Imola became the San Marino Grand Prix despite not being in the San Marino region of Italy. It is only in 2020 when it came back on the calendar that it became the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Another fun fact is that Imola is one of the rare tracks to be run anti-clockwise. It might not seem like a big deal when you think about it, but actually it has a pretty important impact on the drivers. Most of the time on a clockwise track, obviously they will have more right-handers, so the right side of their body is actually used to more pressure than the left side of their body. When we go anti-clockwise, it is the opposite, which can lead to more fatigue, more soreness for the drivers. It also actually impacts the cars, and they often have to make some changes to the suspensions, to the way they manage their tires to make sure that they perform their best at Imola. Now let's move on into some memorable moments and some of the history of Imola. Imola has always been recognized as a fun, challenging track. It is loved by drivers and fans alike, and it is always the scene of incredible races. It has hosted some of the most incredible battles in Formula One, such as the Ferrari teammates Villeneuve and Pironi in 1982 or the Prost and Senna battle in 1985. But probably the most epic one that we've seen at Imola was the one between Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso in 2005. It was the first time for Alonso to be a championship contender, and he knew that he was slower than Schumacher, so he went on to defending very well to keep the first place. And by the way, I highly recommend rewatching this battle, first because it was epic, but also because the cars just sounded so good back then.
Behind. He's not going to, he locks the brake down. Amazing defensive driving by Fernando Alonso. His hand is out of the cockpit. Across the line they go. One of the closest finishes I can remember for many years.
However, despite all these incredible moments that happen at Imola, there is a shadow on this track because of what happened in 1994. Two Formula One drivers lost their lives in the same weekend, including the legend Ayrton Senna. The tone of the weekend was actually set on Friday during the practice session. We saw Barrichello suffer a high-speed crash at the Variante Bassa corner. His car went airborne and he hit the top of the tire barrier. It was a very scary crash. Remarkably, he survived with only a broken nose and an injury to his arm. But the tragedy continued on Saturday when Ratzenberger lost control of his car at the Villeneuve corner. His car went straight onto the concrete barrier, inflicting head injuries. He was declared dead at his arrival to the hospital, but they realized afterward that he suffered at least 3 fatal injuries during the crash. One could argue that the weekend should have been stopped and the race cancelled right there and then, but despite the somber turns of events, the drivers took the green flag on Sunday. After only a few laps, Ayrton Senna, who was leading the race, crashed at the Tamburello corner. The right front wheel and suspension of his car detached upon impact, and Senna got struck in the head by a piece of debris. He was airlifted to a nearby hospital but was declared dead later that day. Senna is recognized as a legend in Formula One and one of the most talented drivers ever. He is celebrated for his F1 career, but also his humanitarian efforts. Now, something else that I want to mention about the 1994 race is that we also saw 9 spectators and 2 pit crew members getting injured. A lot of things went wrong that weekend. We also saw the French driver Comas get released out of the pit lane under the red flag after Senna's crash. He didn't know what had happened and arrived on the scene at full speed. It could have been another catastrophe. 2 years prior, he actually was saved by Senna. He crashed during qualifying and he passed out in the car, and his foot was actually still on the gas.
Well, the day I had the accident, I don't remember anything because I lost consciousness for about half an hour. Obviously, it's unbelievable the way he acted, and spontaneously he stopped his car and caused the danger because the track was not clear. Some other cars were coming, and probably he was impressed by the noise of my engine because I was full throttle, so high RPM, so it was probably very noisy, and then he stopped. The car was a potential bomb, and he came and he stopped the main switch that the marshals could not find easily. It's a day that maybe without Ayrton I could not talk about today.
So it is just showing you how much more than just an amazing F1 driver Senna was, but he was also an amazing person, and he will always be remembered and missed. So after all the events of 1994, a lot of things changed in Formula One, and the track specifically underwent some major upgrades to make it safer and to avoid for anything like this to happen ever again. That winter, both the Tamburello and Villeneuve corners were turned into slower, more angular chicanes. A considerable amount of runoff area was added and the concrete wall was replaced by tire barriers. After 2006, the track was deemed unfit for Formula One championship races. The pit lane area was extended and renovated to more modern standard. Despite these changes, Imola didn't get back on the calendar until 2020. Some changes were made ahead of the race. The full removal of the Variante Bassa, which made the track much faster. It was also resurfaced and some of the infrastructure was improved to accommodate for modern F1 requirements. So let's talk a little bit about the recent races. In 2021, the race was held under wet conditions, which led to a lot of incidents and safety cars. We saw Hamilton make a mistake, leading to Verstappen winning the race. We also saw Russell and Bottas crash, leading to a red flag. In 2022, it was a sprint weekend at Imola. We saw Verstappen take the wins of both races, and Charles Leclerc was initially doing really good, but ended up 6th in the race after making a mistake, showing how much pressure the drivers can feel when they are racing at their home Grand Prix. Last year, the Grand Prix was cancelled due to sudden flood in the area. The decision was made to postpone the race, considering the safety of the teams and fans, but no viable calendar slots were found to hold the event. So now I want to talk to you about the recent news in Formula One and talk a little bit about the last race as well. But to do so, let me jump into the sim and start our drive and talk session. Hey guys, and welcome to Imola for this new drive and talk session. Today, I want to start with a couple of Formula One news. The first one being about Logan Sargent. This weekend could be the beginning of the end of his Formula One career. Williams actually asked the FIA for a license for Kimi Antonelli. He's a very young driver. He has been seen actually training at Imola on the 2022 Mercedes car, which now there are obviously a lot of rumors saying that he might be replacing Logan Sargent starting this weekend. It could be just for a test, or it could be, you know, basically the end of Logan Sargent's career in Formula One. That would be pretty sad for him, but I think, you know, he hasn't been performing too good since the beginning of the season. I think it's good that we are seeing other drivers, young drivers, that are going to get their chance to prove what they can do. It's going to be interesting. It's not official yet, but I wouldn't be very surprised to see it happen, honestly. So the second news is about Ferrari. They have been talking about the upgrades that they're going to be bringing at Imola for a while now, and I think the expectations are high, both on their side but also on the fan side. So I hope what they have been mentioning recently is true, because Fred Vasseur said that he is expecting to be about 0.3 faster. I think obviously depends on the tracks, but 0.3 on the lap can make a huge difference, especially, you know, towards the top. It's getting pretty close, and that would be awesome to see them being able to challenge Max Verstappen for the win more often. So I'm super excited to see what happens. So now a little bit about the last race, and I am so excited to say this. Lando Norris got his first ever Formula One win, and that was so deserved, and he has been waiting for this for so long. I was just so happy for him, and I think everyone was happy for him. I think he really deserved it. He did an incredible race. Obviously, he got a little bit lucky on the strategy, and you know, being able to pit under the safety car, that really gave him the advantage. But I believe he was really lapping at a very close time to what Max Verstappen was doing. So a little bit of luck, but also a lot of skills. We also saw the Red Bull struggle a little bit. That was definitely kind of surprising. Few mistakes from Max. I think he was struggling to get grip on the track. We're not used to seeing him really struggle anywhere, no matter if he likes the track or not. So definitely kind of a surprise, but it is a good sign that maybe we're gonna see some closer battles between the Red Bulls, the McLarens, and the Ferrari moving forward, and I think everyone would love to see that. So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming race. In terms of the weather, I think it's going to be cloudy with maybe a slight chance of rain on Sunday for the race, but we know that actually in Imola the weather is very unpredictable and it can really change quickly, especially at this time of the year. I don't think we can really know what's going to happen, but we know that when it's wet it can be really tricky. It's difficult to pass on this track, and in wet conditions there can be a lot of off tracks, a lot of mistakes. So we'll see. That obviously would make for another very interesting, and fun race to watch. And yeah, and the fact that it is hard to pass will make the strategy really focus on qualifying and then track position and having good strategy and good pit stops to be able to keep that position on the track. On that note, I think it's time that we move to prediction time. Alright guys, it is prediction time. In the last race in Miami, we saw Lando Norris take the win, Max Verstappen was second, and Charles Leclerc was third. I don't think anyone really got it right. I don't think anyone expected that Lando Norris win, but everyone is so happy about it. I do have to give a shout out to one person that didn't make a full prediction, but that still called out the Lando Norris win, and it is Michael Halbrow. So congrats to you for calling that win. But for the upcoming race at Imola, I'm gonna take a leap of faith because Ferrari said that they should be faster than they were by 3 or 4 tenths. So hopefully Charles Leclerc can take the win this weekend. I think Max should still do good, so I'll put Max in second position, and I think I will put Piastri in third. So let me know in the comments below what your predictions are for the next race. I will give a shout out to whoever get it right. And until then, I'll see you in the next video.